Peace, everybody. My name is Crown. Sorry about the delay. We had a few technical difficulties for a few seconds, but my name is Crown, and welcome to MECCAcon. This week, we have Ariell R Johnson, founder and CEO of Amalgam Coffee and Coffeehouse, Amalgam Comics and Coffeehouse. So I'm gonna let her tell her a brief statement about herself real quick.
Hi, everybody. As Maya said, as Crown said, my name is Ariell Johnson. I'm the owner and operator / head nerd in charge at Amalgam Comics and Coffeehouse. We have been serving the Philadelphia area since 2015. We're actually coming up on our 5-year anniversary in the midst of the apocalypse. We're about to celebrate 5 years in December. We are a comic book store and coffee shop, an event space. I like to call us like a community geek space. We try to be like a genuine like meeting place and just kind of gathering spot for our community. Which, you know, I'm proud to say, I think we've been successful at that. We have everything. I mean, again, pre-COVID, when folks could hang out in the shop, we had like kids that would hang in there after school. Right. We had community meetings that would take place like every Sunday. They would meet from this time to this time. We had D&D meetups. We had magic. We had screenings and book signings, like just all the stuff. Again, and our focus has been always about creating community around kind of nerd culture. So not just come in, buy your books and leave, but like actually a space for you to just be, right? And then also focusing on inclusivity, not just having, the titles, those characters that, Marvel and DC that we know, but also kind of digging in the crates and getting those indie creators, those Black creators, those POC, those women, those queer, like all those creators on the shelf as well. I sometimes people ask me, because I don't segregate the books, if you will.
You don't have a Black section versus the white section?
I don't have like the regular section and then this the Black section and this the Asian section and this the queer section. It's like, no, it's in alphabetical order. It's like, you know what I mean? Because it's like, this is something, even if it's not about someone that looks like you, we can all read about other people. Right. And that's how you learn empathy. Like you learn how to empathize with somebody whose situation is different. Right. And I think that's really important. And I think segregating books means like, oh, well, this is for them and this is for me. It's like, no, everything is for everybody. And we really should be sharing stories with one another. I think that's how we like learn to respect each other's humanity and things like that. Like we do, of course, have a feature section. So when it's Pride Month, we pull out books to showcase. When it's Women's History Month, was Black History Month, like we pull out books to showcase like, oh, these are books that celebrate these people, right? And we're celebrating these people. But any other time, it's like this book is also just right here next to Superman. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's important. So I've definitely had people kind of like, oh, well, why don't you do that? And it's like, because I don't think it's necessary, right? I don't think that's
necessary, especially when it's us that own the actual space. We better be in there. So what I separate our section for?
Right. It's like this whole store, Black store. So
yeah, I've just like been really honored to know of your presence since before you even opened. I remember when me and Regine Sawyer, we were online and we saw your crowdfunding. We were just like, whoa, it don't even matter where she from, where she at. She a sister, period. We about to roll up and make sure this sister is copacetic because, when one does something, it feels like we all have done it. So, I honor you tremendously and thank you so much for not only being a presence in comic shops but an actual outstanding comic shop, let alone one that works with indie creators all the time and highlights indie creators.
And of course I appreciate you and everything you do too, keeping the culture alive.
Trying. So what was your inspiration to open the shop in the first place? Like what was your specific reason for wanting to open up the shop?
Well, so I actually got the idea for the shop when I was still in college here in Philly, Temple University. And because I had like my own little routine every Friday, I would go to Fat Jack's, which is in Center City, and get my books for the week, get my pull list. And then there was this really dope dope coffee shop across the street from the comic book store called Crimson Moon. And it was owned by a woman named Coco Darling, the best name in the world. It's like, that's somebody need to write your story. Coco Darling.
For real.
That's a fly name. But she's like young Black woman and probably like around about the age that I am now. That's probably how old she was when she was running the shop. But just like a dope vibe, and everybody in Philly like knew that shop. That was she was around in like the height of like the neo soul movement, and so I know a lot of like stuff kind of popped off in her shop, just like musicians, and just even like her playlist, even when it was just her, whatever she had on, it was just the vibe was everything. And unfortunately, like, Philly is a city that is gentrifying, so even our center city, which had a little was a little grittier in some places. It's starting to, get that shine, that I think all major cities are finding, like, spaces are being like overtaken. And so because of that, she had to close her doors, with increasing rents and everything. And it was really the loss of her shop, the coffee shop, that inspired Amalgam, because I wanted to create a place like her shop, like again, because for me, it wasn't just, go to Starbucks or something like that. It was like, no, because it was a vibe there. It was an energy. And like, I'm introverted, so I don't need to talk to anybody. And I usually don't. But it was, even though I wouldn't necessarily be talking to the person next to me, it was just something nice about being in that space and just kind of, feeding off that energy. And so I was like, it would be dope if there was a comic book shop that was also this kind of space. So it's not just like you said, just go and buy your books and then, go off to your nerd hole to read them. It's like, no, like you sit, you have a cup of coffee, whatever, and you chill. And so that was really like the beginning of like the idea of Amalgam. But it would be like, 10 plus years before I actually was in a place, I think 13 years exactly, before I was at a place to really make it happen. And that all just came about because I was really unhappy in my professional career, like getting in my car and crying the 45 minutes it took me to get to work, like that kind of unhappy, like just kind of didn't know, just felt like I wasn't going anywhere and didn't feel inspired by anything. Like, what am I working towards? And around about the time, when I was about 28, I lost my mom, and my mom was 57 when she passed. She had cancer multiple times, and then at the end of the day, she had a stroke, which was really debilitating, and then ultimately she did die of cancer. And 57, which is not old, right? And then I lost my dad when I was 16, also before 60, right? So I'm pushing 30. I hate my job. I feel like I'm not making any impact that I want to make, and I'm also dealing with this realization of like my own mortality, right? It's like neither of my parents made it to 60, and so for all I know, I might be halfway out the game, and it's like, is this it? I want to leave being proud of something, you know what I mean? Not just existing, but like I did this thing that I was passionate about and I feel good about it, Right. And my parents were definitely just inspiration. Like my dad was a comic book nerd. My mom was a low-key sci-fi nerd. I've realized I didn't even realize she was a sci-fi nerd until I, just kind of in thinking about her and the things we would do together. It's like, yeah, when I was with her, we watched X-Files, we watched Quantum Leap, we watched Red Dwarf, we watched Star Trek. I was like, oh my gosh, she was a low-key like space nerd. and I would, and she's not nerdy, you know, like I said, she's not like open with it like I am, right? But it was like, wait a minute, there's a thing, there's a common thread.
Yeah, she still do her shit though.
Yeah. So yeah, and so it's and she always wanted to open her own business, and that's not something she ever got to do. So I feel like I'm honoring both of them in, you know, opening a business and the kind of business that it is. And then, you know, so and then the last piece was just my sister and my brother-in-law, who just spoke words of encouragement to me. You know, again, I just felt like I was just out there in the ether, and I didn't have any direction. And I was also kind of struggling with feeling like I needed to grow out of this nerd shit. You know what I mean? Because it's like, I got my little kind of corporate job, and I'm still coming home to like reading reviews for this book and that book, reading fanfic. And then I was like, you know, you thinking like, maybe I should like be a grown-up, like whatever that means. But it's like, I don't really know how to do that, because this is the stuff I really like. And my brother-in-law just said to me one day, he was like, you know, the only time you ever get excited about what you're talking about is if you're talking about comics and dance. And and when he said that, you know, I kind of took it hard initially, like, yeah, I know, I'm trying to, you know, have more grown-up interests. You know what I mean? And my sister was like, no, that's not what he's saying. He's saying if those are the things that excite you, you need to really think about that. And it just kind of, you know, knowing that, you know, to preface it, my older sister, like my sister's 15 years older than me. My brother-in-law is 25 years older than me.
Oh, wow.
So they're like adults, and they're not into this nerd shit, right? So to hear them still say like, yeah, I don't really get it, but I know that's your thing, and you need to like really think about that. And knowing that no matter what, I would have their support also kind of emboldened me to say, all right, well, maybe it's time to revisit that like little daydream fantasy thing I had when I was in college. Like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if? And it's like, well, why not? You know what I mean?
Right.
What's up, everybody?
Yeah, they blowing up. The brothers have pulled up. They have pulled up. Shout out to all the family. Shout out to my sisters. Thank y'all for supporting me constantly all the time. So as far as Amalgam, you know, you talked about your inspiration for wanting to open the shop. What was your process? What was the actual process of opening a shop, let alone opening a comic shop and coffee house at the same time, let alone being Black owned? Because that's a whole nother conversation in itself.
That is a whole nother conversation.
Let's talk about all of that.
So I mean, just research, you know, so just I had a friend, I have a friend, Corinne, who's like really gifted at like web research. So she was like helping me, in any article she could find about comic shop ownership, she would send it my way, you know, so I'm taking notes from there, because it's not an industry that has a lot of like publications dedicated to it, right?
Right.
Like you can't go to a library and it's like, oh yes, this is the comic book. Right. But so you really are looking, you know, just bits and pieces as you can. I had a friend in Maryland who owns a shop, still owns a shop. Shout out to Bumper and Twilight Zone Comics, who, you know, was just willing to kind of talk to me, you know, and again,
give you advice on.
Yeah, but also I think because I didn't want to ask for his business plan. And that's the thing people do. Like I've had people more or less just ask me, what's your business plan? And it's like, well, that's really, you shouldn't have. Like people put real time into that. Don't ask somebody for their business plan. You should have a clear picture of what you're trying to do. Exactly. Right. And then you're just asking for advice.
Exactly.
Right. So I was able to go to him, to my friends and other like comic retailers that I was able to reach out to, and they were kind enough to like, you know, give me, you know, commit some of their time to answer some questions. But I came to them with real questions like, okay, you know, this is my estimate based on, you know, Philly's population and the density of the area code that we're going to be in. This is what I think sales will look like. does this number make sense to you? Or, you know, as a shop owner, you looking like that's not correct. You know what I mean? But again, but I've done the work. I've crunched some numbers. I've done the research. I did demographic studies. Like I know the racial breakdown of the area that I'm going to be in. I know how close I am to public transportation, both train and bus. You know what I mean? I know that you can park on the street here, which is all, you know, if people want to come to your shop, but they can't park their car, that's a problem, right? So you got to kind of have all those things in mind. So after doing all that research and compiling my business plan and putting it together, and got a lot of assistance, like, you know, if you're trying to start a business, check your public library. I will say, like, Philly's library is really great, for a great resource for wannabe business owners, no matter what industry you're going into. Like go to their business department. Love libraries. Yeah, they're really dope. And I think, you know, in this digital age, we forget, it's like, no, the library is fucking awesome. It's like, go to the library. I was at the library for 5 of 7 years, was at Detroit Public Library. Other libraries out of state, you know, it's just, you know, libraries are very powerful when it comes to building our community as a whole. And the people use the library more, they be in a better space, because libraries are prolific. Yeah. And like you just never know. Like I was able to take like a free class on trademark patents, like they, you know, going through the difference of what's a trademark, what's a patent. And so like, that's the other thing I did. Any class that I could find, especially if it was free, I went. So I did a lease negotiation class where they just kind of talk about, because commercial rents are different than residential rents, where residential rent, you pretty much say okay to whatever the landlord says, you sign it and you go on about your business. But with commercial leases, you can negotiate any and everything, you know, who's responsible for what and this and that. And so again, just kind of having that knowledge to kind of go into those conversations and things like that. So it's definitely important to, like I said, just do your research, take any and every class you can, access your network. Like if you know somebody that's a lawyer, like they might not be able to help you but they might be able to direct you to somebody who can, or somebody who's more well-versed in that. Like you need to talk to people just to make sure you have as many ducks in a row as you can. Like I'll say, like I definitely made mistakes with Amalgam. Like, you know, if I could go back and do it again, which I think is life, you know, if we could all go back to our 18-year-old selves, we would do life completely different, right? It's like I would do it so much better the second time around. So there's always going to be things you miss and mistakes you make, but you can learn from them too. But I think the most important part is to have as much information as you can as you're actively, you know, moving forward. And you will definitely get hit bumps and scrapes. Like there were parts of where I didn't think Amalgam was going to open at all. Like it took us a year to even start construction in the space that we got to open the shop. So it just got to a point where it's like, this is never going to happen. The money stuff not working out, this and that. But then eventually, you know, stuff started to fall into place. And I will say I had to I think the other thing is, like, in addition to like finance and all those kinds of resources, you also need a good support network. You know, I mentioned my brother-in-law and my sister earlier, and they really kind of, and my friend group here in Philly, like really helped me keep my head in moments where I was like having meltdowns, and you feel like, oh my God, this is not going to work. So to have those people to soundboard off of, have those people to encourage you, to pray with you. Like, I mean, I have full on prayer circles, people just coming up like, yeah, just let's go over to the store. I just want to pray for you real quick. You know what I mean? But just all of that encouragement to keep going, because it's like, it's exhausting and it's easy to just get burnt out and not want to continue. And that's real. You know what I mean? So if you're trying to do something and it's hard, know that that's real. It's not that you're doing something wrong. That's why it's hard. It's just hard because it's hard. Like life is hard. Like, you know what I mean? We don't live in a world that makes anything easy. Right. So you got to kind of be ready to take those bumps and scrapes. From a financing perspective, tap multiple sources. Like the money that I put together to open Amalgam came from more than one place. So friends and family, yes. A crowdfunding, yes. Loans, yes. But even my loans weren't straight bank loans. Like I went to organizations that specifically serve communities of color and women. So going to where that is their mission, to empower groups that have a harder time getting access to capital. Even in Philly, there's programs to kind of encourage businesses to open on certain corridors, and the Frankfurt Avenue is a place that they were hoping to revitalize, but again, they didn't want it to turn into just like this corporate takeover. So it's this investment in small businesses opening on the corridor, where you get this loan, but if you manage to stay open for 5 years, which we're about to hit,
right, and that's powerful in itself.
Yeah, and but then
the business,
the loan converts into a grant, and then you don't have to pay it back. You know what I mean? So it becomes just investment capital as opposed to like a debt. So just just again, do all kinds of research, look and see what's out there. Again, there are even organizations out there that are dedicated to help people write their business plan. If you've never written a business plan, because maybe you have a business idea, but you don't have a business background,
right?
You can maybe find like SCORE is a great resource. 5 years. And I feel it. I feel like Obama. When it started, I had green hair, but now I feel like I color my hair so you don't see the gray. It's like you gotta be doing something else. I'm looking like an old lady. But yeah, so again, it's just always kind of having your ear to the ground and following up on opportunities. Right. Even in this time of COVID, being aware of what's out there to help, get grant money to float until, the world resumes. Like Amalgam is a business that really is dependent on community. It's dependent on people coming and gathering, and we can't do that. Right. So that really does put like a hiccup in my whole business model, right? Like that's
all across the board. Yeah,
all across the board.
Events there,
like all across the board
for their stuff. Yeah.
So it really, being able to access, the grant money that was available, that was important. But again, like organizations like I think they're Philly based, but I wouldn't be surprised if they had branches other places. The Women's Opportunity and Resource Center, because I'm in their network, they were emailing me, did you see this grant? Did you see this grant? So even things that I maybe missed, I had like somebody like watching out for us to make sure we could get everything that we could get to kind of keep us moving forward as long as possible. So again, it's like this ongoing thing. It never stops. So I think, like I said, research, take every class you can, build up your network, build relationships with folks, because you'll be surprised how many people want you to be successful, and so also look out for you, which is like, I think has been really humbling, in this, like the fact that it's like, we're a business, right? And we're for-profit business, so it's it's not a 501c3 or anything like that, but there is definitely this community vibe where people just, they love Amalgam. They love the space. Like I've had customers just checking on me like, hey, messaging us, hey, Ariell, I hope everybody's good. Can't wait to shop at the store, customers sending donations. Like, we just want to make sure you're here when the dust settles. Like, you know what I mean? So you realize like, oh man, what I'm doing, people care, which is nice. Cause sometimes it feels thankless. You working 7 days a week, you working from sun up to sundown. Like there would be times where I would leave the store at 3:00, sleep for 3 hours and come back at 6. Right. And so half the time I feel like a zombie, and you think like, why am I doing this? But then when people just show up for you, you realize like, oh man, what you're doing, it matters. It has an impact. It's providing something that the folks in your community want, they need, and they want to support. Right. So I think that's been, at the end of the day, the thing that has really kept me going, because it's easy to burn out. And I know, when you're doing the jobs of 20 people, and you getting paid the salary of half a person. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, but you trying to figure it out, you know?
It's you know, I
It's
couldn't
real.
even imagine.
It's real.
Because I know all that I do is a lot. And I look at my sisters that do something totally different, and I'm still like, all the shit that they do is a lot. And it's just so hard to process, you know, watching y'all, because you didn't just open up a comic shop. You opened up a comic shop and a coffee house, which is just as hard, if not harder, to open, let alone run and deal with all that. And a lot of people in, you know, the comics community may not even realize all that you even have to deal with on that side of running the business. You know what I mean? Let alone that you're a Black-owned coffee house. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's levels to this. How do you deal with that? Did you get any setback at all? Trying to even open up your space? I mean, minus the crowdfunding grant and all of that. Did you have any setback with the community about that?
Oh no, not. I mean, yeah, not with the community. Like I said, our community has been.
The city, not the community. Excuse me.
Oh, the city.
Yeah.
No, I mean regular red tape. Just, you know what I mean. But I feel like, again, I had folks that were like, make sure you ask for this, make sure you ask for that.
Okay.
So I felt like I was able to navigate the city stuff fairly well. The delays that we had were very much like my contractor dicking around and not doing what he was supposed to do when he was supposed to do it, like that kind of stuff, like managing other people. And I think, and that's something to think about too, like when you are running a business, depending on the scale, you know, even though it's hard to do something that's just you, when it's just you, it's just you. So everything is always done the way you want it done because you did it, right? But when you get to a place where now you have to involve other people to complete your mission, you have to always recognize that it is not as important to them as it is to you, right? So I have folks that I'm paying to do a job, and then they half doing the job, right? Because they don't care. They got their money. You know what I mean? So then it's this staying on top of people, like, excuse, you know, I mean, and there were moments where it got ugly with some people I had to deal with, where, you know, you almost cussing people out because they playing, you know, they playing games. But again, because it's your vision, it's not theirs. Right. They just want to, they just want to get in, get out, make their money, and they don't care. They don't care if you're successful or not. They're there for the little window they're there, and that's it, and that's that. So I think that was the most, I guess, impactful setbacks. Just kind of dealing with other like independent companies almost. The city, though, I mean, there's red tape and things like that, but I didn't feel like I had any additional issues because I was a Black woman. You know, oddly enough, sometimes I feel like my biggest critics were Black people.
Oh, of course.
Which is like, you know, upsetting. I feel like we don't ever have any grace for one another. It's like, you go to Walmart, you wait in a long line. They act like, you know, they see you looking for something. They don't even talk to you. Then you stand in this long line. Then they check your receipt like you stole something. And then we say, oh, I can't stand it here. And then we come right back. Like, you know, how many times you go to Walmart a month, right? And then, you know, a Black business, we're out of one flavor of tea. We have 20 other teas, and people really getting funky because we out of one tea. And it's like
professional. It's like Black businesses. They always run out of everything. That's why I feel Black-owned businesses, because they don't be professional.
Yeah, and it's always immediately like, that's why I don't even shop here. It's like, well, I mean, we got literally 20 other teas. I'm sorry we didn't have the one tea that you wanted, but it's, you know, it's like that sometimes, you know what I mean? I don't know. And it's like, you got to take it with a grain of salt, but yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like, I had this one guy, and I remember, because I had to call my sister after it because I was so upset. It was like a Tuesday. So, you know, comic folks know that's the day we get books, because new books, you know, come out on Wednesday. Yeah, and I think I was down a person. Yeah, Randy. You know, everybody know Randy, our son, the voice of reason. who's our comic book Jedi. I think he might have been on tour because that's, they Grammy award winning Gangsta Grass. I said Grammy award. Well, I think they did win a Grammy, or Billboard. They're on the Billboard charts. But so he sometimes he's not there because he got his own stuff going on too. And it was just one of these days. So I'm down a person, and I think I was having a meltdown about something else. And this guy comes in and just has an attitude. And I see him looking around. I'm like, "Oh, sir, did you need help with anything?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, well, you should have said something to me when I came in the door. You didn't greet me." And I was like, "I'm sorry, sir." I was like, "We're dealing with a really big shipment." I said, "There's a young man up front, my barista on staff." I was like, "Didn't he greet you when you came in? Or did he greet you? Because if he didn't, well, that's a conversation I need to have, right?" And he's like, "Well, he greeted me." And it's like, okay, what business do you go to that the owner, that the owner or the top level of management is standing at a door saying, thank you for shining. Like, come on. Like, what is that is an unreal expectation.
He
right?
wants the whole staff to stop.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's being a Black business or specifically being a Black woman or what it is.
Know what it is.
It's just like,
what it is.
That's not even a realistic expectation of anyone.
You know what it is.
And especially when he left, I'm trying to figure out what happened. Like, oh, did you greet him? Yeah, I greeted him. Did you talk to him? Everybody's like, yeah, I asked him if he needed help. He said he was waiting for this or waiting for that. And then I also asked him if he needed help. So everybody at some point during your 20 minutes in the store asked you if you needed help. What other place do you go to that they do that? Right. So, but it's like, that's not enough. And he left in a huff and, whatever. And it is what it is, but it's like really frustrating because it's like, that didn't even make any sense. And I've been in stores for way longer than 20 minutes and nobody said anything to me. I was on my own, looking for what I was looking for, buying what I bought and leaving. Right. But again, it's like, I think it's like what you have to realize with Black businesses, it's like we're expected to do more all while having less. Like, I don't have the same resources or access to things that other groups have, right? But I'm supposed to perform up here with resources that are down here, and people don't understand that. And so I always say, you got to give some grace to Black-owned businesses because you got to recognize they're not operating on a level playing field, right? And I don't, if I gotta wait 20 minutes to buy something like restaurants and stuff, and it's like, yeah, I know this Black-owned business, it might take them a little longer, so I'll just call a little earlier,
adjust a little bit,
so I can make sure I'm putting my money where I want to put my money, and the food is good, right? And yeah, and it's just it's that simple. But I feel like people, I don't know. It's just unreal expectations. And so I always just tell folks that, please exercise some grace when you're dealing with small Black businesses, because it's hard out here. And oftentimes it's like one person doing most of it, and sometimes you're doing it because you can't afford to pay somebody else to help you. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I'm still here because I can't afford to pay anybody else to do this thing. So I have to do it. Right. And that's real. And I don't think people realize how much of a grind it is. It really is. I'm not sitting in my Lex Luthor chair, rubbing my fingers together. It's like, I'm cleaning the bathrooms. So it's I don't know what you want from me. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, that's one of my dreams, to have my own brick and mortar, but I know how much of responsibility that is. And then even, paying your employees, the process of that, making sure that they're okay, even if you're not okay. And it's just,
and that's real. It's like, I'm responsible for people, right? So at the end of the day, my crew comes first. So when money is tight, I'm the one that goes hungry, for real. It's like they worked and I got to pay them for what they worked. And then I got to just figure it out. And again, that's real. And I think, again, normal, right? Most small business owners, like, you're going to miss paychecks, so be prepared for that. Just kind of already have that in your mind. And again, it doesn't mean you're failing. It is just what it is. And I think what helped me realize that, some of it is just part of it, is like talking with other small business owners to realize, like, oh, you dealing with that too. So it's not just me, because sometimes you feel like you're the outlier and everybody else is hitting all the marks and you're just falling apart. And then you talk to other people and you realize, like, no, that's about par for the course. You doing okay. Which I think also kind of helped me kind of just keep things in perspective. But yeah, it's like you're responsible for people. And that's different, again, than just like, oh, it's just me doing my thing, right? It changes everything.
As far as retail and sales, how does that directly affect, your sales? Like, how does that work for running your shop?
So you just mean like the breakdown?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's so clearly, I mean, we're a bookstore, and the whole thing with comics is you have to have them in stock, right? So inventory is actually a really big expense, and inventory is, not a highly liquid asset. Like, you could buy something and it sits for a while, but you've already paid for it, right? So now that's money you cannot access until you sell this thing. So that's also been like a challenge, just kind of managing it, because there's a lot of books out there. A lot of stuff drops, and then you add the indie stuff to the mix, and it's a lot to try to stay on top of, and trying to make sure, like, oh, we restocked on this, oh, people are asking about this, we got to have this,
or that's just sitting there. Yeah,
or that's just sitting there, we like, don't order this again. You know what I mean? And yeah, so but because we are a bookstore, and so much we do have so much tied up in inventory, it is really important for us to sell the merchandise, right? The coffee does act as a balancing, just kind of, because I have customers that are coffee customers that never buy books. They don't even look, they don't even go into the book section. They come in and get their morning coffee and they go. And so that kind of acts as like a leveling, because there are certain days book sales are really high. There are other days where we barely sell books, but the coffee kind of keeps everything moving. But long and short, I want to sell the books, right? So that's the thing. And again, just finding that balance of, getting the order just right, especially because in a lot of cases you can't return anything. So it's not like, whoops, I over ordered, let me return it and get credit. It's like, there is no return, there is no credit. You are stuck with that, right? And so you might have to mark it down, you might have to bundle it.
You stuck with the Ta-Nehisi Coates Black Panthers. You can't get your $4 back.
You can't get it back. And like those legacy titles, that's difficult too, because if somebody comes in and they want Black Panther, and it's like, you got issue 25, the most common question people will say, well, do you have issue 1? It's like, no, issue 1 came out 3 years ago. And it's like, but we have trades, and then they're like, oh, well, I won't get the single issue, I'll just get the trade. So again, you get into this place where you're selling trades, but the single issues are sitting, right? So there's this natural, I guess, attrition that happens, like, as you get higher up, you decrease what you're ordering, because it always tapers down. Number ones are easy sells, but when you get to issue 12, that might sit. So you kind of have to account for that and start cutting down. And that's, of course, in the time of COVID, getting especially important, because we don't have foot traffic. So there's people can't come in and browse the shelf and say, oh, this looks cool, or I like the cover, I'll get this. It's like, no, you can't actually come in. What are you looking for? So right now we're doing a lot of stuff online. We're doing, phone, because I want to keep my staff working, but safely. Like, people are still getting sick. People are still dying. This is not over. And I didn't really want to open up our space to other people. Like, we have to be in there. We're all wearing masks. We're, washing our hands and all this other stuff. But I didn't want to open it up to the general public, especially, when folks are fussing about having to wear a mask, or they're wearing a mask under their nose. It's like, that's not doing
you halfway out.
Yeah, it's like, that's not doing anything. So it's just like, it's a challenging industry, and COVID is definitely introducing some new challenges. So we're still in the process of pivoting. I'm still trying to think like what this looks like 6 months from now, because we don't know, right? We don't know. And just trying to figure out like what's the best way to serve our customers, serve our community, and keep my staff working while also being as safe as possible. So still figuring it out, as I think most folks are.
Do you sell more trades than you do single issues?
We do.
I think that a lot of the indie people need to know that, like, how good do the shops sell trades versus volumes, or versus single issues, or one runs? Like, what does your shop specifically sell the most of?
Well, we do. So I get it depends. So we get a lot of like new readers. So we get folks that are like, oh, I heard about the shop. It's so cool. I'm new to comics. Can you suggest something? We also get a lot of millennials, folks that don't own their homes. They move every 2-3 years. And so they do not have the storage space to just have a shit ton of single issues. You know what I mean? Like I have 13 short boxes that I move with every couple years. And I was definitely like, yeah, I can't buy any more single issues because I don't have room for, like, I don't have room. I don't have a place where I can just let stuff accumulate yet. So we do sell a lot of trades, mostly trades, like Saga is a big one for us. I'm trying to think, like Paper Girls, Wicked and Divine. What am I thinking? Genesis? Am I thinking that right? It's so many. Like Abbott, Infidel, like stuff like that. Like these, like, it is a finite story. This is the story, right? Because that's an easy sell. People know, like, oh, I bought this one book. This is everything. Cool. The legacy stuff. So when you get into the Marvel stuff, the DC stuff, it is easier to sell the trades than the single issues. Again, because you're getting these collected volumes. Like I said, like you come in to get a Wonder Woman book. Well, it's up to 756. It's like, I can't get you issue 1. Right. So if you want to go back further, if you really want to go to the beginning, you got to get that in a trade. Like, I can't order that, Right. So, but when we're talking about indie stuff, because the indie stuff does not go out of print in the same way that the, Marvel DC stuff goes out of print, I can always reorder it. So, like Tuskegee Heirs and Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer, like we get them and they're gone. Because Tuskegee Heirs is of course safe for all readers, and we actually do sell a lot of children's comics. So over the years, we've actually made that a more robust section, because that's what people like. I'm looking for something for my kid, and yeah, so those books do well because we can get number 1. So I will say this to indie folks, like, you certainly, like, trades sell. I don't know from a printing perspective what is cheaper to do, single issue versus trade, but trades sell. But as long as you're still printing issue 1s, for us anyway, that is still a sell. You know what I mean? Nobody ever says, well, I don't want the single issues of this, I want the trade, as long as we have issue 1. So that is what I'm finding out, because people want a complete story. People want to, we are in a binge society. People want to read it at their own pace. They want to be able to get every issue when they want it. So it's like, yeah, I understand that came out 3 years ago, but I want the first issue today. Right. You know what I mean? So as long as I can meet, like, oh, I can get one in, then they sell like hotcakes. Like, that's not a problem. So I don't run into that issue of like attrition as issues go up with indie titles. I don't. Actually, it's like really hard for me to keep as many indies on the shelf as I want, because you're, again, trying to balance Diamond and all that. And then I'm like, all right, I got this much money left, I'm going to order this book. You know what I mean? So it's like coming in waves, because as much as I'd like to have everything all at once, it's like a finance thing, right? And you just can't. But again, like my folks, understand. And I have folks who are subscribed to indies, so I'm always keeping track, like when something else comes out, because I know certain folks are looking for Isnana, are looking for Tuskegee, or looking for Harriet Tubman. So, I'm doing the best I can with that. And I'm like excited about the Bic Distro company, which is making it a little easier to keep up on indie stuff and get it quicker, which is awesome. I just received our first order, and they said that we were their first order. Amalgam was their first order, so that was cool.
Shout out to Jason Reeves.
Yeah. So working on getting that stuff unpacked and getting it up on our website. We've been having some technical difficulties with the website, but now we got that figured out. So working to get that stuff up and available. So hopefully by next week, those titles will be up for folks. And yes, and just so again, that makes it like a little easier, like more things in one place, where in one sitting I can get a couple books instead of having to reach out to everybody individually and all the mechanics and the
they take care of that. Yeah, that's
run around to that. So that's really dope. That's exciting too. I think that's important, the distribution piece as well. So if any shop owners out there, definitely look them up.
Yeah, contact Jason Reeves at 133art.com for more info on Bic Distro. He has a whole team with him doing it. I believe they're like a comic distributor, correct?
Yeah, Black indie comic distributor.
Specifically Black indie.
Yeah.
And that's what's up, because that's needed, because it doesn't exist that I know of. I'm practicing saying that, so I don't sound like I know it all. That I know of. They're the only ones that I know of that are doing what they're doing, let alone in the magnitude that they're doing it. So yeah, that's dope that you're even, because that's what was going to be one of my next questions. Like, do corporations reach out to you, or organizations of any kind reach out to you as far as sponsoring, as far as working collaboratively, anything like that? So besides them do any, because I see that Marvel, I remember when Marvel put you on the cover of the Ironheart comic, and that was dope, and that gave a lot of traffic to your shop.
It did. And I was actually surprised, because I'm looking at the back end and I'm thinking I gotta pay for these books and then hope somebody wants them, like, and like the love that issue got. If people still ask, like, do you still have them? And it's like, no, those are, they are long gone. Like, the only way people can get them now is like on the secondary market. So if somebody's selling theirs on eBay, but and that was like a really cool thing. And unexpected, honestly. But yeah, I mean, so we have had some cool things happen. And yeah, with folks reaching out to us, like the late John Lewis.
Yes.
His camp reached out to us when March Volume 3, actually before it dropped, because we had a pre-release at our shop where he did a signing. And that was cool, because that was an instance of them reaching out to us. Lovecraft Country, HBO reached out to us to provide books for their the swag bag that they sent out. So if anybody got that swag bag,
that's what's up.
The Lovecraft Country, Children of Blood and Bone, and The Water Dancer, all of those books came from Amalgam.
Wow.
So and again, that was them reaching out to us. So that was awesome. And again, came at a good time with just everything going on, and and we definitely needed that. So yeah, we've definitely had some really cool opportunities, where people just sought us out. And then of course, we're a community organization, so local schools in the neighborhood might ask if we might sponsor a fundraising event by donating a gift card or some merchandise. And so we do that when we can, and yeah, so it's like, we're receiving and we're giving at the same time. So it's really cool.
Yeah, that's what's up. Because I was definitely excited when I actually have it. It's on my bookshelf. You're covered. And I didn't even read that series. I was just like, oh, Sits on the front. Boom. Okay, cool. Buying one for myself and my son, like, just off rip. I thought that was just so dope that they even honored you like that.
Yeah, it was dope. And the cover actually was Randy's idea. Because they reached out saying, do you want to do like a store variant? And I said no. Because Randy was like, do you want to do this variant? I said, how much? And they told us with how many books we had to order. And I was like, no. I said, we're not doing that. And then Randy was like, well, wait. He's like, let me see if I can talk him. So he was able to like talk him down so we didn't have to order as many copies. And
Yeah,
but now you find out like, oh, that was a mistake because people still want this book. But we were a brand new store. Like I don't even think when that came out, we weren't even a year old yet.
Oh no, yeah, very
so it's like, yeah, I can't take that much risk. And then as far as the cover, it being me and Riri on the cover, that was also Randy's idea. Cause he was like, well, do you have any ideas? And I was like, I don't really. And he was like, well, this is my idea. And he was like, it's you and Riri in the shop, just at a table. And I was like, okay, sure. I was like, that's fine.
Serving the coffee.
Yeah. And then it just became a thing. Right.
Who did they have do the cover?
Torque, Elizabeth Torque.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I thought, and the image she used of me is actually from a photograph, so she did a pretty good job.
Paid attention, yeah.
Yeah. My only issue with the cover was like they definitely lightened the sister up a little bit. And I went back to them. I was like, I said, can you make me darker? And then they made me like that much darker. But then it was like, oh, now it has to go to, like, we ran out of time. Like, by the time they sent me the proof and they were like, oh, this is for your approval. And I said, well, I like the image, but the coloring, I'm more chocolate than that. And again, they made you that much dark and that's it. It's like, I don't know why people scared of this brown skin, but that's the only issue I have with the cover. But other than that,
they had an issue about that also though.
Yeah. And I know I was listening to another podcast where they actually brought it up, about the lightning. And it was a concern of mine because it's like, I don't want people to think I asked them to do that. It was because I was like, because I was actually like, more brown. And so I was really nervous that we might get blowback because they're like, why you let them lighten you? And it's like, well, I didn't let them. They presented it to me. I said, please change this. They changed it within the parameters that they were comfortable with at the end of the day. And that was the end of that. Right. But still, long and short though, it was cool. And then the release of it, oddly enough, it came out the Wednesday following Election Day, 2016. So it felt, I'm sure, I know I felt it was an ominous day. It just like the mood in the air felt different after that, like those results. And so many people came up, like there was this family, like multi-racial, multi-ethnic family that actually drove up from DC. And they were like, you know what, just after last night, we knew we needed to come up here because this is important. This is an encouragement. This is something to be like, you know what, we're still pushing forward. We're still making strides. And so many people came in that day and said the same exact thing. Like, I knew I had to get here just to get this copy and kind of share in this experience because my mind is blown that that man just became president. You know what I mean? And I mean, so it's like, that is, that's really crazy. Actually, somebody wrote a book and they included that experience of getting their comic, that comic in Amalgam, because they sent me a copy, like, thank you so much for letting me include this. And it like, it was just cool. And so again, like it meant something for another reason too, because we were just all feeling very discouraged, right? As I'm sure so many other people were. So it was like this bright spot in an otherwise kind of shitty day, and then here we are, 2020. So we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, it was yeah, again, one of those things that still doesn't even seem real to me that happened, But yeah, it was cool.
That was good though, because just how fast your shop grew, let alone the longevity of it. Like you're saying, you're literally about to celebrate 5 years, and 5 years is, that's very dope to have a comic shop, let alone a comic shop and coffee house. And then you can literally say you've been open for 5 years, like, and survive the pandemic as a relatively new business.
Yeah.
In the state of Pennsylvania, of all places.
I know, right?
I get it. I'm in Detroit. I get it. I understand.
As I say, I don't live in Pennsylvania. I live in Philadelphia.
That's
I
right.
live in Philadelphia. It's like, I don't know what the rest of them doing, but I know Philly turned out and did what they were supposed to do. I can't
That's
speak
right.
for
That's how we
people.
feel in Detroit. That's how we feel in Detroit. It was red as hell everywhere else, and then boom, boom. Here come the blacks. Like they were to call us, the blacks. Here come the blacks. The blacks have pulled up. How are you?
And Detroit got some good stuff going on. I've met like different folks being associated with the Knight Foundation. I've had an opportunity to meet a lot of folks from Detroit just doing awesome things. So, you live in a great city.
Thank you. Yes, the Knight Foundation is who I did my MECCAcon artist residency program with last year.
Oh, dope.
Yeah, that was a whole thing, to say the least. So, it's Knight Foundation, Kresge. It's a lot of huge programs here in Detroit that are good for grant and funding and being as cooperative economics as you can be. It's a lot of resources. It's a lot of nonsense in the resources too, though. It just depends on how you finesse around them. Can you do a matching grant? I can't do a matching grant, because if I had that money, then I wouldn't be asking you for that money. Right. Oh, okay. So, I don't apply for matching grants. Okay. Because it's people that I know that have, won the matching grants, and they're still paying to get that matching grant years later.
Wow.
So, sometimes, and I'm not talking about the ones that I mentioned, but some organizations, when you do matching grants and stuff like that, you're really benefiting that company more than they're benefiting you, because they can walk around and say, we're helping these Black people do this, and we're helping these poor Negroes do that. And look at what we did. Let's take photos in their business, even though they're not going to open this business for like 7-8 years, because that's finally when they're going to be able to afford to pay us the money that we kind of promised that we give them. So it's a whole thing, right. It really is. That's why I always am impressed by people who actually do get lucky enough to open their brick and mortars, let alone have it a successful one. It may not be as successful as they wanted it to be, but it's still successful, let alone in the public eye. It's very impressive what you've accomplished.
Yeah, thank you. And COVID, nobody saw this coming, and nobody sees the end in sight. So I don't know what it looks like. I just know that we're going to keep it moving for as long as we can. And at the end of the day, no matter what happens, I can be proud. Right.
Exactly.
It's like it was a pandemic that took us out. You know what I mean? If that's, how things play out. I just think right now I'm just trying to not be so stressed about it, because so much of it is out of all of our control. Right. But, again, just doing what I can do to, like I said, keep my folks working for as long as possible, keep us going forward for as long as possible. And, we'll see, where we are when the dust settles. But no matter what, I am proud of Amalgam. I'm proud that I was able to, because I recognize there's so many people who want to do this thing that I got to do, that I was blessed enough to be able to do. And I don't take that lightly. You know what I mean? It's been a real privilege and honor, a learning experience, a growth experience, a reality check. Like, it's been a lot of things, opening a business. But like I said, no matter what, I'm proud of what Amalgam accomplished in the short time that it's been here.
Have you gotten a lot of support from other comic shops or Black-owned comic shops specifically?
Oh yeah, I mean everybody like looks out. I mean it's hard because everybody's just trying to keep their hustle alive, but like we always show love and big ups, and I think and I got a lot of folks, especially when we first opened, just kind of sending like congratulations, like, yo, just heard about your shop, that's great. I want to visit when I can. Like Mahogany Books in DC, the husband and wife that own that came up just to check us out, right?
That's what's up.
Yeah, so just kind of showing, just showing love, which is always awesome to see.
Yeah, that's what's up. Well, is there anything that you would like to share with the public that I haven't asked you 900 questions about yet?
No, I mean, that's pretty much it. I just, recognizing that we're all starting to feel, the tightness of it all, just with finances and everything. Like it's getting real out there. So for folks who support Amalgam in any which way that you support, whether it's ordering something from the website or if you have a mail order subscription or whatever, I just from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you for continuing to support, even though I know it's getting tough, and like comics, that's a luxury item. You know what I mean? And we are definitely getting to a place where some of our folks are having to kind of back away a little bit because they got to keep the roof over their head, right? And that's real. Right. So again, I appreciate everyone who has supported us in any which way that you can, and for those folks that can't do that right now, I understand that too. And I just, I pray that everybody makes it out of this, healthy and safe, and, that we see some kind of a, economic bounce back. It's weird because it's like, I during this time, a lot of eyes got open to things that have been going on for a long time. So I'm careful to say, I don't want things to go back to normal. I think because normal wasn't necessarily healthy or just or right. But there is like, people are hurting. So I hope that we do have that kind of bounce back, but I pray that it is done in a more like ethical way. Like, I just feel like there is an ethical way for us all to live and pay our bills without being exploited and run down and like murdered in the street. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, and I hope that, we're about to go into just a time where as a nation, we are aware, of just the glaring problems in this country, and that we are on a road to kind of start to make things right. So all that to just say thank you.
Yeah. Girl, please. Thank you. Thank you for honoring me with your presence to be on my little engine that could show that in my mind is the shit.
It is the shit. Yeah.
It's the shit in my mind. So thank you, sis. I appreciate you immensely. And congratulations on 5 years of having a Black-owned business.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Peace.